everyone. I hope you're all doing okay. Welcome to another episode of Navigating Purpose with Temi. Today, I have with me a special guest where we're going to be talking about something a bit different. We're going to be talking about estate planning. We're going to be talking about wills, and we're going to be talking about trusts. Just having conversations with my friends, I've come to realize that, we're getting older, whether we like it or not. And it's important to start to have conversations around wills, around trusts, around who you leave your money to, who you leave your wealth to. And I really hope that this episode is as enlightening as I think that it would be. And I hope that you enjoy it. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming my special guest, Boushra. Hi, Boushra.
How are you?
Good. I'm good. Thank you for joining me on the episode today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for welcoming me as a guest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So before we go on, just tell me about yourself or introduce yourself to the audience, and also tell me about what your company does.
So Just Wills was started by Mohammed Maria, and you've met him before.
Yeah, great guy.
He has a lot of insights about
Yeah.
estate planning, about wills, and he brought the concept of wills and estate planning basically to the Middle East and to UAE specifically.
Wow.
So at Just Wills, we focus on providing expert advice to our clients on how to properly plan for their passing and to ensure that everything is planned for, that themselves and their loved ones are comfortable,
Yeah.
and have the easiest legal processing basically of moving their estates and whatnot. We also help in facilitating inheritance and probates. That's whether there is or there isn't a will.
Yeah.
Myself as the director of business development,
Yeah.
my main focus basically is to, first of all, increase our reach. And as you know, a lot of people don't talk about wills and inheritance and estate planning and all of these topics.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we just don't, I think it's because we think we're going to live forever or something, but a lot of people aren't really thinking, at least a lot of people my age or in their mid-30s. I would even be surprised if the stats were, even more than that. But I think people aren't really talking about it. But anyways, we'll delve more into that later. Yeah, so on the last episode with Lydia, she actually left a question for you. And the question is, if you received $1 million, how would you spend it?
Interesting. $1 million. I would just immediately, at the spot, distribute it to my loved ones equally.
Wow. I wouldn't do that.
I'll keep an equal share for myself.
Yeah, even I wouldn't do that.
No,
I love you guys. I love you, Mom. I love everybody, but I wouldn't do that.
Simplest way to just,
Yeah, to make it easy. I think what I said when she asked, because I told her, I said I must answer this question. I mentioned to her that I was going to save, I think I said about $700,000. I'll put it first in savings and in investments. And then I also mentioned something around obviously giving money to my loved ones. And then, but I was like, I'm putting all that money away. Not to be greedy, but I really do love that you.
No, but I'm curious to know why 700,000 exactly.
I don't know.
Just the numbers that came to mind.
It's just the number that came to mind to say, hey, maybe I'm putting 70% or whatever. I don't know. I don't want to be calculating up, but putting away majority of that in investments and locking it away, for the future or for children or for whatever. But I think that's a good response.
It's interesting how different people look at things for the future. I
Yeah.
The immediate answer that just came to my mind was just to get rid
Give
of it.
everybody.
Get rid of it and
Yeah.
don't have the hassle of
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah. So what is estate planning?
Estate planning basically handles different matters, which is your wealth.
Yeah.
That's the main topic. How would you like your estate to be divided, or where do you want it to go and how do you want it to go on? It also handles different other topics, which are guardianship of minors or dependents, and can be let's say someone has a disabled loved one, a brother or a parent or whatever it is, and they want to make sure that they are well taken care of.
Yeah.
And they want to assign the proper people to take care of them and to make sure that their well-being is well handled. So these are all the different topics that estate planning talks about. We also have strategies that can take place in the life of a person if, God forbids, they have been under circumstances where they are not aware or not able to handle their matters. So it doesn't only handle, it's not only related to matters where when a person passes away. There are so many scenarios where a person doesn't pass away, they're, let's say, in a coma. Their business might stop completely and their bank accounts might be paused. No one can handle their matters on their behalf. So estate planning makes sure that you have strategies in place for any scenario that can happen where you need someone to take care of your things, and you want to make sure that it's done the proper way and according to your wishes.
Yeah.
Because a proper way to you might not be the proper way to a loved one, even, and someone you trust very much, but their vision and view might be different from yours.
So under estate planning, are there like types or like components or segments of it? So I would think that, for example, wills, trusts, and maybe some other things fall under estate planning.
So estate planning has different components.
Yeah.
One of them, which is the most commonly known, is having a will, basically.
Yeah.
Now, wills themselves have different types and different components, but a will is one very important component of estate planning. We have another option which is called trusts, or in the UAE we call it foundations.
Yeah.
We will touch maybe more on this, where this is used more by people who want to protect their legacy, and they have, it's a different scenario from the simple will, basically. And then we have also power of attorneys. That's a component of estate planning where you assign someone to handle matters on your behalf during the lifetime. If the person is unable, or in a, we've touched on being in a coma or being unable to handle their own matters. There are so many different, and of course assigning guardians, assigning trustees and people that, and giving, of course, one part which is not technically legal or legally binding, let's say, but the letter of wishes. Every person wants to leave specific instructions to their loved one to make sure they have a proper vision and they have an understanding of how things should go. And these are all different types of components of estate plan.
So let's delve in a bit more into those components, I would say. So the two main ones that I know are wills and trusts. So I want to ask the difference between wills and trusts, but I also want you to talk about the third component, which is specific to the UAE. So what is the difference between a will and a trust?
Okay, so let's talk about the main difference between wills and trusts. So a will is a document that you draft during your lifetime, and you explain in it how you want your estate to be divided, and who is the guardians who will take care of the children or any dependents, and all of these matters that you want handled after the passing. Now, a trust is a different arrangement. It's basically an arrangement where a person holds someone as a trustee, and they ensure that there are, of course, documents in place which explains exactly how they want their legacy to be handled. Now, the trust or the trustee basically holds your estate. And this estate doesn't go through probate after the passing, because anyhow, it's all held by the trustee, and it moves automatically in accordance to the documents that are drafted, which are the bylaws, we call it, of the trust. This is basically the main difference of trust and wills. Now, there are certain people who, in their scenarios and their unique circumstances, a will would be more convenient and the better option for them. In some other scenarios, of course, a trust would be faster processing. It avoids probate completely. It can help to ensure that no business is stopped at all if the person passes, because automatically everything moves to the next in line, which is assigned in the trust. So in the UAE, the concept of trust is a little bit different, where we call it the foundation here, and it's facilitated by different authorities. And to explain a foundation clearly, a foundation is a type of document of company, and we can say it's the highest type of company. So this foundation can hold all of your estate and assets. It can hold companies in its name, it can hold properties, cars, and whatnot. What happens here is that all of these estates are owned by the foundation, and the foundation has a head, which is, let's say myself, I'm the founder of this foundation. I can assign people next in line to handle my estate if in the event that I'm unable or unwilling or I've passed away. Then the next in line will be handling those estates. So this means that those assets are not technically in my name. So no probate is needed to pass on those assets to the person next in line.
Yeah.
This option makes sense for people who have huge businesses and they want to protect their legacy. They want to protect the name of the business. Let's say I don't want the name of my company to change.
Yeah.
I want the company to be run in a certain way. So I have bylaws in my foundation or trust that explain exactly how I want my business to be run and whatnot. So the estate is not really being passed on to the next in line. They are just kept in the name of the foundation, run by the next in line, and the next in line is, and of course there are beneficiaries who will benefit from this estate and the proceeds of it.
What are the type of wills?
Well, the most common will is the simple general will that you make, where you explain how you want your estate to be divided and assign the guardians and whatnot. We have, of course, the joint will, which is the spouses make one will together, and they put the wishes at the same time. This is not very much common, and especially in the UAE, it's not too common. I'm not sure outside if people are doing this, but we. What's more common in UAE for couples is the mirror will.
Yeah.
So as I explained, you make two wills mirroring each other.
Yeah.
So to say that if the husband passes before the wife, what happens, and if the wife passes before the husband, what happens, and make sure that everything goes in line with both their wishes. We have something called a living will. A living will is basically it's similar to a power of attorney, where the person can put wishes of what they want to happen in case they are in a coma or they're unable to make healthcare decisions for themselves. So they can assign someone who can make sure that the same decisions that they would take if they are in their mind are taken on their behalf. There are so many different types that we can dive into, but again, it's always, depending.
It depends on the situation, I guess.
Depends on the situation. We always sit down with the person, talk to them and understand. Most common, like I said, is the common will, the mirror will. There are wills that only have guardianship provisions. So some people, for example, say, I want my assets to be divided the way it normally goes, according to the country law, according to the state law. But I want to make sure the guardian is this person. So we make just a guardianship will.
Wow. Right. That's interesting. Another question that I had was, what are some interesting insights or statistics, I would say, around estate planning or wills and trusts?
Well, according to the latest insights, we can say more adults are having wills. And when I say adults, I mean a little bit older in age, so 50 plus. They're having more wills. And even out of people who are above 50 years old, 1 out of 3 people only is having a will. Younger people usually say that, okay, I'm not old enough to have a will, or I don't own enough estates to have a will. And one very important insight, and what I've seen actually and experienced with my own eyes, is that more men make wills than women, and this is really, really
Wow. Well, to be fair, it's expected, I would think. I think a lot of women don't think about owning wills.
Let's be fair. A lot of men and women actually assume that automatically by me passing, my spouse, husband or wife, is going to get everything. And that's not the case in a lot of scenarios.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the UAE, civil law is applicable to expats, but only 50% goes to the wife and 50% goes to the children. And sometimes the children are minor, and you cannot take care of the estate properly when they are minors cannot sell anything, you cannot control everything the way you wish,
Yeah.
as long as it's not in your own name. So it's understandable that more younger people don't make wills because they don't assume it's really important, which is why we want to really raise awareness and explain that, you know, this is something
Very, very important.
It's very important.
Yeah.
And again, it's not just in the case of the passing, it's also in the case of being unable or having a scenario where you can't handle your own assets. So this is one thing. Women more likely don't make wills because they assume that everything goes to my husband and my husband is going to take care of my children.
Yeah. But in that case, anything can happen. Your husband could, I don't know, I don't want to be negative. I don't want to be negative, but you don't even know if this person has a whole different family.
We like to always keep a positive insight.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
understand the
I
trust.
should keep it positive. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, actually, according to a lot of countries' laws, the husband doesn't get everything. The husband will get maybe 25%. Then if you have, let me talk about the UAE specifically.
Yeah.
In the UAE, what happens is the husband gets 25%. Everything else gets divided to the children, which is great for a lot of...
And nothing for the wife?
No, I mean, in the scenario where the wife passed away.
Oh, right.
First,
Okay.
She has a husband. What happens is the husband gets 25%. Rest goes to the children. Now, if there are no male children, then the daughter will get a share and then her siblings will come into account, which is great for a lot of families. And to be honest, I believe that there is a certain way of dividing estates where everyone gets a slice and everyone is happy. It's really good. Sometimes this doesn't go along with our own wishes and what we want to happen. I've had a scenario, for example, where, and this was by no mistake of the husband or the wife or anyone, but the lady passed away and she had a daughter from a previous marriage. And she had a new marriage, of course, with a couple of children, and the husband got 100% of her assets according to European law. Now, her daughter from previous marriage is left with nothing.
Wow.
And thankfully, the husband is good enough and he understands he's a father to the daughter and all, and he took care of her. But technically, you have to make sure that you protect your
assets, your family, your loved ones.
And you make sure that, and as you said, we like to always keep a positive insight, but you can't always trust each and every person, you know, and you can't trust laws and you can't trust, all of these things you need to keep into account and make sure that you have a plan in place, line. The law is supporting you to make your wishes happen. When you are not taking the responsibility to properly plan and whatnot, then it's left up to authorities to decide on your behalf.
For you, and most likely wouldn't favor you.
And it's left to luck and it's left to trust. And so why? That's my question always. When people say, why do I have to make a will? I'm like, why not?
Absolutely. Why not? Why don't you want to protect your family? Why don't you want to protect your loved ones, your children?
It's simple.
Your wish as well, you know. You're the one that knows who's closest to you as well. So how do you set up a will? What do you need to do? What's involved in the process? How much documentation do you need? What are the steps involved in creating a will?
Look, my advice to anyone planning to have a will would be, first of all, inventory your assets. That's really important. Make sure you have a proper inventory of what bank accounts you hold in your name, what properties you have, in what countries and whatnot. Now, based on the inventory of your assets and your plans for the future, because you might be planning to buy an asset in the future and you're saving for it, let's say, or something like that. So inventory your assets, make sure you have everything put in bullet points, and then clearly think about your wishes and how you want them to go and how you want these assets to be distributed. It's really important to sit with someone who's specialized in estate planning and have them explain to you your options and explore different scenarios. On this specific point, I'll point out something where almost 90% of the people who come to us wanting to make a will, they come with one wish in mind and they think this is the only scenario that can happen. Like example, a man saying, if I pass away, I want everything to go to my wife. Make sure this is the will. Okay, then we give him different scenarios that can happen. Let's say, God forbid, your wife passed before you, then what happens? Have to specify who do you want the assets then to go to. Then they say, okay, let's say I want to give everything to my 2 sons, divided 50-50. Okay, in case your son is unwilling, or passed away before you, what do you want to happen? Automatically everything goes to his wife or to his children. Some people say, no, I don't want everything to go to his wife. I want everything to go to his siblings, to go back to the family and to be... So all of these scenarios we think about, and we draft like a roadmap of all the possibilities that can happen and tell you, okay, based on this, what do you want? Based on this, what do you want? And then we make sure that the will covers everything.
Yeah.
Now, so we covered, for example, inventorying your assets, making sure you know where you want your estate to go, thinking of any dependents or minors, that's really important, and assigning the proper guardians.
That's very, very crucial. I actually think that we should kind of talk about that a little bit more.
Yes, exactly. This is something that people don't think about so much when they think about wills and estate planning.
Yeah.
Our mind automatically goes into wealth and you know, my assets and my money and whatnot, but we don't think about the fact that me as a person right now, I'm taking care of my minor children or my dependents or an elderly parent or grandparent, and I want to make sure if I pass away, what happens to them. So assigning
power
a guardian.
of attorney, right? Or is that different from assigning a guardian?
No, assigning a guardian is different. Power of attorney can be during the lifetime. So this is again a small difference that we can dive into, which is the difference between a power of attorney and a will. The power of attorney is only active during the lifetime. Can be active if the person is in a coma or has a certain situation, but they have to be living. The moment the person passed away, power of attorney is null and void. It cannot be used anywhere.
Wow.
So that's where the will comes in place. Now, the trust is the combination of both, basically.
Yeah. So you talked about power of attorney now. So power of attorney and guardianship. So guardianship is only for when the parent is incapacitated or dead.
Yes.
And that's for both of them.
That's for, yes.
That's for incapacitated or dead.
Yes, exactly.
For guardianship.
Yes. So assigning a guardian can be during the lifetime and after. You can mention the scenarios where you want this person to handle a guardianship. And again, guardianship is not just assigning one person and getting it over with. Sometimes I might assign, let's say, my sister to be the guardian of my children. And then at the time when she's needed, she's out of the country. So we always advise to assign a temporary guardian. Someone who can take care of the minors, or again, we keep focusing on minors, but it's actually also dependents, like elderly or someone who's a special needs, a brother or a parent or whatever. So all of these scenarios, we make sure that we have different options in mind and different plans for all the different scenarios that can happen. Someone who can take care of them temporarily, someone who can take care of them throughout, for life. And then what are the exact powers of these guardians and of the executors of my will?
Yeah.
So when I say in my will I'm assigning an executor, I have to make sure that I'm studying what powers will they have and what do I want to give them and what not.
Yeah.
So in some scenarios, for example, I might say I want this executor to hold any assets that belong to a minor who's the beneficiary of mine, hold it as a trust and keep it with them and make sure that it's protected until the minor reaches 21. In some other scenarios, I might say, no, I want the guardian to take control of these assets. It's all we have to sit down with the person, discuss with them. And that's why I always say, when you're planning for your future, when you're going through estate planning, sit down with a professional, someone who knows the law very well, and someone who can advise you properly on everything that can happen. And then you can together draft these documents the proper way.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm blown away, to be honest. I'm quite blown away. There's so many thoughts kind of running through my mind. To be fair, I don't have a will. And I think that that's something that definitely I'm going to work with your company on after this podcast. It's been something I've been postponing for a while. And I'm like, okay, this is actually really, really important, Temi. You really kind of need to get on it and get yourself sorted. Basically.
I'm glad this is an eye-opener. And I hope it's an eye-opener for a lot of people.
Yeah,
Because
definitely. I don't think my friends have wills. We have a lot of like in-depth conversation around, wealth management, building wealth, getting properties, but I've actually never had a conversation with any of my friends, and they're doing quite well. I've never had any conversation with any of my friends, and they've actually told me that they have a will. So I definitely think that this is something that a lot of people will find, very useful and very beneficial. Another thing that I wanted to ask you was around the costs around it. I don't know if you can talk about costs here, if you tell us, kind of contact my company, contact Just Wills. But what would you say would be an estimate? Let's give it an estimate or a range for people that are interested in wills. Maybe foundations could be a bit higher, but just kind of giving a price range.
No, I can tell you it starts from around 4,000 for the will to sit down, draft it, register it properly with the proper authorities. And this is something important as well. It's not just writing the will on a piece of paper. It has to be taken through the proper channels to make sure it's registered, it's valid. So it starts from around 4,000.
Yeah, and then it could go, for wills, it could go as high as how many inventories or assets you have?
It's not, well, I wouldn't want to, I wouldn't tie it to the amount of inventories you have and whatnot, because at the end of the day, the will is a will. But we can say it starts from 4,000 up to 8,000, depending a little bit on the type of the will that you're making. Example, we have something called a joint will or a mirror will, where also spouses want to make sure that their wills are tallying together and they're mirroring each other to make sure that the wishes are aligned. In that scenario, it's similar to drafting two wills, basically. So it can go up to 8,000. It's in that range. Now, when we talk about trusts, yes, it's a little bit more complicated to talk about because you have government fees that are tied to each and every asset and moving that asset around.
Yeah. Is there anything that can supersede a will?
Anything that can supersede a will?
Yeah.
Good question.
I'm like, just in case.
Yeah, good question. There are few things actually that can supersede a will. One, for example, is beneficiary forms that you sign with your insurance company. So let's say you made an insurance and a life insurance, and you've made a beneficiary form and you've put the beneficiary as X person. Yeah. And your will says that everything goes to your child. The beneficiary form of the insurance does not follow the will. It will have to go according to the beneficiary form only and the information mentioned in it.
Wow. So do you check that with your, that? Okay.
Yes, that's something very important that we talk about. We say always update your beneficiary forms. So in the will, as a provision, we always also say that in case there is nothing mentioned in the beneficiary form, then divide according to the provisions of the will. But if it's there, the will cannot do anything. Yeah. Even for end of service entitlements and retirement, gratuity, and things like that. So as long as there's a legal document that's stating exactly how this goes, then the will cannot really take care of it. Another example is joint accounts. Bank joint accounts where there is a type of bank accounts where it's like, let's say, joint between me and you, and I say if I pass away, then automatically this person joining me will take over everything. Then again, the will cannot handle it.
And then another thing that you talked about probate. What is a probate?
Yeah. So the probate is basically the process of having an inventory of the assets of the person who passed away, managing it and deciding where it goes. This is usually handled by court, where a person passed away, legal ears come forward, or one of the legal ears will come forward and say, okay, my late father has passed and he has all of these assets. What do we do now? So the court will start its process by having an investigation, trying to collect the assets, information, and whatnot, and then deciding what goes to who.
Yeah. And basically, a will helps you to avoid probate.
Well, that's it doesn't technically help you to avoid the probate altogether, but it simplifies the process of a probate by a lot. Let me explain on this. So a person passes away without any will.
Yeah.
What happens is the court has to be informed. Then the court has to decide who are the legal heirs because they are not decided.
Yeah.
There's no will.
Yeah.
So this process altogether, in the UAE, we call it legal heir document or legal heir decision.
Yeah.
Where the judge or the court will come forward and they will ask who are the legal heirs. Is there any sons? Is there a wife? Okay, does he have any brothers or sisters? Are there living parents and all? And based on all of this information, they will decide, okay, now the legal heirs are A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
After that, the actual probate starts where they start dividing those assets. The legal heirs have to inform the court, okay, we have this property and this car and whatnot, and then some assets are not known to the legal heirs usually, like bank accounts. In so many scenarios we've had where a son comes forward and says, my father passed away, and I heard him talk about amounts in a certain bank, but I don't know which bank it is. And in that scenario, then we have to have the court send letters to all of the banks and start inquiring about this name and if he had any assets, and then wait for them to come back and whatnot. So all of this process is necessary for any person when they pass away. Some people make it simpler by sharing this information with their loved ones. Now, a will makes it much more easier because one, in the will you are specifying exactly who the legal heir is. So you're saving automatically about like a couple of months of investigations about family members and who are the legal heirs. You're deciding, and it's going according to your own wishes. So it's not someone, some external party like the court or judge or a certain government who's deciding for you.
Who gets what.
Exactly.
Yeah. And just on kind of the rules or the policies here in the UAE. So if I set up a will here in the UAE, for example, would it follow Islamic laws?
So when you're drafting a will, it doesn't follow any specific law.
Okay.
We're applying the civil law, and the civil law tells you, as long as you're an expat living in the UAE, you can have a will according to your own wishes. You don't have to follow any specific law. Some people even donate everything they own to a charity. That doesn't follow any government law or any religious law. And here we're talking about different religions as well. You know, some people follow a certain religion where, for example, a son gets more than the daughter.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to apply. You do everything according to your own wishes.
Yeah.
You specify who is the legal heir. The legal heir can be a husband, a son, a brother, a father. It can be a friend. And it can be a business partner. And we have one more scenario which can happen, and I think you would be interested in this, is divorce agreements or prenuptial agreements. So if you're drafting a prenuptial agreement, it's mentioned in it, there is a part in it that both parties or both like the spouses should make sure that their wills is tallying with the prenup agreement or with a divorce agreement. So I've interestingly enough had a case just a couple of months ago where a person passed away. He had a previous marriage, and in their divorce settlement, she was supposed to get 50% of certain assets that he owned.
Yeah.
And then he passed away and he had a will. So what happens in that scenario is that
prenup would take
divorce settlement will take place first. So first her share was taken out, and then the will applies to everything else that's left.
Wow. That's interesting. Sad a bit, because it looks like it probably didn't tally in her favor.
Look, it's not technically sad, because what you need to make sure is and this is why we say you have to make the estate planning a priority. So you understand what happens, and part of estate planning is actually prenups and all of these matters, because you have to look at all scenarios that can happen and make sure everything is tallying together and everything is going according to your wishes. And it will take you, like your estate planning, let's say, strategies are taking care of everyone and making sure everyone is happy and satisfied.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much, Boushra, for this. I think it's been really, really interesting, really insightful. There is a part of this show or this podcast where I tell people to leave a question for the next guest. So leave a question for the next guest.
I would like to ask that, when was the last time you thought about what would happen to your to your legacy?
Yeah, wow, that's a good one. When was the last time you thought about what would happen to your legacy? Yeah, that's a heavy one for the next guest.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Well, thank you so much, Boushra, for joining us. I really, really, really appreciate your time. How do people, just before we leave, actually, how do people contact your company? So just...
You can have our website. I don't know if you can share it with them. So justwills.ae, and then you can always contact us on our hotline, 800 Wills.
Okay.
And as simple as that, and we'll be there to assist you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Boushra. Well, thank you guys. I hope you really enjoyed this episode of Navigating Purpose with Temi. I hope that you've taken notes, and I hope that you're able to also share this episode with friends, loved ones, and family. But thank you guys so much, and look forward to joining you on the next episode. Bye.